It's been about 10 days since Christy Clark and the BC Liberals won a minority government in the British Columbia election, but someone needs to tell John Horgan and the BC NDP, who are acting as if we voted for a new government and for change. Simply put, that is false. Christy Clark and the BC Liberals won the most seats and the most votes, and because they are the incumbent party, they get to continue to try to govern. Of course, we are still awaiting the recount next week and the addition of the absentee ballots, and that could change 1 or maybe 2 seats, but unless there's a real shocker and the NDP pick up 2 or 3 new seats that they don't currently hold and don't lose any others to the BC Liberals, it will be the Liberals that get the first shot to continue to govern. Basically, the way our system works is that unless a party wins a majority of the seats, the party who was previously in government does get the first crack at governing until they lose a confidence vote in the legislature. And that would mean even if the NDP won more seats than the BC Liberals, but not a majority of the seats, the party previously in power always gets the chance to continue on. And Christy Clark can continue on fairly easily, as the budget has already passed this year, so there won't need to be a confidence vote on that if she doesn't want it. And with the summer break and the opportunity to maybe postpone the fall sitting of the legislature until October, Christy Clark can stay on Premier for at least 6 more months before facing a confidence vote if she wants to. And if she did lose a confidence vote, it's not an automatic certainty that the NDP and Greens would get an opportunity to form a coalition and continue governing. In fact, it's more likely we would see another election if that should happen. There is precedent for this in Canada as well. If you recall, in 1979, Joe Clark won a strong minority government, only a few seats short of a majority. He didn't call Parliament back for many months, but when he did, he lost a confidence vote and Canadians went back to the polls 8 months later, and Joe Clark was soundly defeated. I don't think for a second Christy Clark's fate would be much different than Joe Clark's, so I suspect an election within a year is unlikely to be part of the BC Liberal strategy going forward. As I mentioned off the top, these facts and protocol for how our government works seem to be lost on John Horgan and the BC NDP, and just about every other progressive politician and organization under the sun. Vancouver City Councillor and former NDP MLA Tim Stevenson wants to see an NDP Green coalition. Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson says a BC Liberal government jeopardizes transit plans. Environmental activist Ben West wants a coalition as well. And heck, even former Ontario NDP Premier Bob Rae decided to chime in, also suggesting a coalition is possible. Look, I thought we got rid of that guy when he retired. If that's the list of people lining up to oppose the BC Liberals and Christy Clark, then I know what side anyone who believes in free markets and resource development needs to be on. Yeah, look, if you add up the 3 Green seats to the 42 NDP seats, you get a majority number. But coalitions don't work so simply in Canada like that. Again, the first opportunity to govern until a confidence vote always goes to the incumbent in a minority situation. So unless we see floor crossings or a merger of the NDP and Green Party, there will be no coalition. And that's good news for those of us who fear such a coalition. But the bad news is, even if the Liberals get to that magic 44 or 45 seats for their majority, with such thin margins, vote whipping, and attendance being so important, we will expect the BC Liberals to be appeasing the Green Party to some extent to get things done. And while that may scare some people, I don't think it will be bad for a couple reasons. First, Green Party leader Andrew Weaver has already voted for 2 BC Liberal budgets during the last sitting. Second, the Green Party has a delicate balance to manage. They've just broken through winning 3 seats. So if they submit and join a coalition to a bigger and more powerful NDP, they may get lost, their role minimized, and eventually, like we saw in the UK when the Liberal Democrats entered a coalition to support the Tories, they were essentially wiped out in the next election after they became irrelevant. Third, and most importantly, there are topics outside of resource development, pipelines, and carbon taxes the Green Party and BC Liberals can agree on. Election finance reform, possibly a referendum on electoral reform, and education and healthcare spending, which is now possible due to the surpluses the BC Liberals have in hand. I want to just say something about electoral reform for a moment. I don't actually think it would be that bad for British Columbia, especially for those who want another choice to the right of the semi-conservative BC Liberal Party. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. As I mentioned, next week we find out the final results of the BC election, so make sure you watch for my video on that. And if you haven't done so already and you love our videos on Canadian politics and news stories, click subscribe on our new Rebel Canada YouTube page.